Shake up at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning ride is okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always as
Nice
simple
ride.
as 1,
What's
2,
up?
3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Hey everyone, welcome to Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm your host, Angie Miller, and I am here to talk to you today about the power of a pause. Basically, how we can beat holiday burnout. I think that even if you're not a person who is accustomed to feeling overwhelmed, or you're not maybe a high responder to stress, if you will, I think that it's easy to feel overwhelmed at this time of the year. And so I want to talk about just the power of taking strategic pauses during the holidays. And I don't think it's just a good, nice thing to do. I think it's a necessary thing to do. So we'll talk about some of the ways that some of the signs of holiday burnout, some of the signs that you might be closer to burnout than you recognize, and some simple ways that you can find some calm amongst the kind of frenzy of the holidays. So maybe it's family dynamics, maybe it's gift giving pressure, or maybe it's just these endless social obligations. I just want to offer some practical strategies to make this holiday season more joyful. The thing is that I'm very close to my family. I have 4 sisters, I have 2 daughters, very close, very connected. And yet, without a doubt, sometimes when you get family together, there's going to be different ways that everybody responds to their own stress in their lives, and different dynamics come into play. Sometimes we regress into old childhood behaviors. But whatever the case, there's so much stuff that comes into the holidays. There's also a lot of memories, like if you've lost loved ones, there's grief over, gosh, the holidays bring up the fact that I'm no longer with my partner, or I'm no longer married to my former spouse, or my parents are passed. There's so much that comes into play during these special times of the year. So I'm just wondering if you've ever had a particular holiday where you felt so overwhelmed, but maybe that point where you sort of broke or snapped led to a moment of clarity. So whether it's just something simple like you burned a batch of cookies right before you went to a cookie exchange, or whether it's that you just went crazy and you financially overspent, or maybe you snapped at family and it caused some dissension that lasted for longer than what you would have liked. I think that a pause can be a powerful thing to change the dynamics of everything. I think that slowing down versus speeding up during the holidays is actually the answer. And I know it sounds counterintuitive and people say it all the time. Oh, you just need to breathe, or you need to slow down. And you're thinking, yeah, that's great in theory. But I think that it's more doable than maybe we recognize. So again, I'm Angie Miller. And first, I just kind of want to talk about, like, what are some of the traditional holiday stressors? And they're different for everybody because we all celebrate different holidays, and we celebrate holidays differently. And that's what's unique to every single individual and family. So first, I just want to talk about some of the traditional stressors. And some that come to my mind are gift buying pressure. What to buy, how much to spend, how to buy for the impossible to buy for, or like, do I get a couple's gift? Do I get a gift for each person in the couple? I'm going to tell you, I just had a birthday yesterday. Happy birthday to me. And my husband said to me, "You're the hardest person to buy for. I don't like buying for you because I feel like you have everything and it feels like I never get it right." And I was like, I felt kind of spicy about that. But, there is some truth when you can be a hard person to buy for, whether it's because you feel like you don't need anything. For me, it's that I'm trying to simplify my life. I don't want to add stuff. And also because generally, if I need something, I know what I need and I get it. But some of the other traditional stressors besides the gift giving pressure is the financial stress, right? All of a sudden you have to have extra funds to purchase for everyone unless you really think about it throughout the year and you buy little gifts as you go along. My mom used to do that. She raised 5 girls, and I remember she would start Christmas shopping the day after Christmas because everything was on sale. There's also kind of these perfectionistic tendencies that some of us have where we need to have this Instagram worthy holiday, like the tree has to be decorated a certain way, the house has to be put together. And sometimes that can bring out the worst in us and in our family. Or like, the Hallmark version of the holidays. And most of us probably know that our holidays never look like they do in the Hallmark movies, or maybe yours do. Mine do not. There's also family expectations, like trying to maintain family traditions because we feel like that's what's expected. When I was growing up or when I was raising my daughters, I was the only girl out of 5 girls in my family who had moved away. So there was always that pressure of, well, you got to come to us because we all celebrate in one city. We all live in one place. You moved away, therefore you get on the road. So there was always that added pressure. There's time management struggles, right? Like you're still working, you're still running your day-to-day life, but now you got to add holiday events and parties and shopping and all the things. So another, I think, traditional stressor is either your social calendar is overloaded or it's underloaded. All right. Maybe we don't have all the events going on that we feel like people around us do. So those are some of the traditional stressors. I think some of the hidden stressors of the holidays is social media comparisons, right? Like what other people are doing. We wouldn't even know it if we didn't have social media, but we see it on Instagram or Facebook. And again, if we feel like our holidays are underwhelming or we're underloaded, we don't have enough events, and it looks like everybody around us does, that can lead to some ugly feelings, right? Like even if we're not teenagers, social media can drive anxiety. And then there's the idea that another hidden stressor is a lot of us work remote. So the holiday parties of the past or the holiday gatherings or just being around a bunch of people during the holidays feels different now, right? Post pandemic, so many of us are working from home. We're not surrounded by work family, and we're not all kind of talking about the joy of the holidays or sharing stories. Um, Being far from family, I think, is kind of a hidden stressor, if you will, because, maybe you can't go shopping with your mom or your sisters, or you don't see your kids on a regular basis because they're adults and they live far away. I think there's also, sometimes the hidden pressure could be this pressure that we feel to explain what our holiday plans are. And if they're underwhelming, then we might not want to share. And if they're overwhelming, maybe we feel like we're complaining. So those are some of the stressors of holidays. I know you've got some too, and I would love to hear what yours are because, again, they're unique to all of us. But I have some ways that I think just some check in, right? Like if we were to pull over to the side of the road and I was to say, hey, how are your holidays going? What are you feeling? What are some of the physical and emotional signs that might indicate that we need a pause? So sometimes we're not the best people at determining whether we need a pause. Sometimes it's the people around us who are like, wow, I think you need to take a break. Okay. So, some of the physical or emotional signs that maybe the holidays are getting to you is holiday shopping frustration. So, the long lines, traffic out in the streets, parking lots are just always jam packed. We find that a lot of times I feel like now when I go to stores, there's very limited product in the stores. Maybe we feel like we're dealing with behavior that's less than positive, like maybe on the verge of rude behavior from people who work in the stores or people who are shopping in the stores, or maybe we're being more rude than we normally would. There's also some physical and emotional signs of holiday stress would be emotional eating, right? I think it's easy to get hooked on sweets again at this time of year because it feels like everything is just loaded with sugar. And with those things, like with the holiday anxiety and frustration and anger and the emotional eating, that also can affect sleep. So we then have this disrupted sleep patterns. Maybe we're exhausted, but unfortunately, the minute we lay down, our mind starts to spin. Maybe we start snapping at people we love or don't love. Or maybe some people withdraw during the holidays or just start excessively checking social media because we're so anxious about our own plans that we find ourselves looking at other people to see what they're doing. Or maybe you just are finding that you're more prone to tears. Maybe you're having more emotional meltdowns or strong reaction to things that normally wouldn't get to you. So I don't know what the signs are, and they're going to be different for all of us. But I think there are definite signs if we were to stop and take a pause that maybe we need to stop and take a pause, that maybe we are more spicy, more anxious, more frustrated, more prone to snapping at people during this time of year. And if we are, then we're not only losing our own joy, we're causing those around us not to have as much joy. So, some of those are some of the physical and emotional signs. But some other things is just, when you find yourself scrolling social media at 2 a.m. or scrolling Amazon at 2 a.m. or endless Walmart runs or Amazon shopping or feeling pressured because you have to create these perfect moments for everybody in your family. So let's think about this then. What would be some powerful holiday pauses that you could take when you do find yourself dreading going to your family gatherings or dreading, I just had a gal tell me this morning, she's like, my sister's coming next week and that goes with its own, I can't remember how she worded it. I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, we love each other, we hate each other, we have our differences, and it's hard when we're together under one roof for an extended period of time. And that's the thing about holidays is when you go to see family, a lot of times we do regress, or we notice our adult kids regressing into being, the oldest or the youngest, or getting into those same turf wars that they used to get into when they were younger. So maybe on the pause, maybe you need to take 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 1 minute, a half day, whatever it is. But here's some times that I think it's powerful to take a pause, right? So when it comes to financial stress, I think it's powerful to take a pause before you hit buy now. So I know that now a lot of the shopping sites have this, they call it each site calls it something a little bit different, but like you can immediately purchase. It's got your card saved and it's a one button, one stop shop. But then I think it's better to put it in your cart, let everything sit overnight for 24 hours, go through your finances and make sure that's really something that you want to or can afford to buy. So before you hit buy now, maybe pause and take a moment and ask yourself, financially, is this the best thing? And is this really what I need to purchase right now? So in terms of family dynamics and having triggers like old patterns that start to resurface, like when things start to get tense and someone throws bait, if you will, something that's an old wound and they put it out there and you're like, oh, you just opened up an old wound. I can't believe they went there. So I think that taking a pause in those situations is really, really important. And I'm going to talk about what some of those pauses can look like. But I think, again, one of them is before you hit buy now. One of them is when family dynamics start to get really tense and somebody says something that really frustrates you. Another one is before you respond to an invitation. I think it's important to take a pause because before you immediately hit yes, check your calendar a few times, check the day before, the day after, and all the things going on that week. Because remember, it's not just that one event. It's all the events surrounding that one event that are going to affect how good or bad of a time you have. Don't you think? Because sometimes we just overcommit too readily. So I think when loneliness hits, it's another time that we might need a pause, giving ourselves permission to feel what we feel, if only for that moment or that half day or that hour. I think during family gatherings, pauses are really powerful. And I think that anytime we find ourselves putting pressure and saying things like, I should do this or I should do that, that might be time for a pause because that's kind of like shaming. So I'm going to give you some kind of very what I think are user-friendly pauses. So whether it's family dynamics, whether it's before you hit buy, whether it is big social gatherings, whether it's whether or not you're going to say yes to an invitation, here's some real life ways that you can take pauses. One of them is just when you pull into a parking lot before you go into a store. How about if you just consider sitting in your car and just taking 5 or 6 deep breaths and kind of doing a grounding exercise, kind of checking in with yourself. How was traffic on your way there? Like instead of rushing out of your car and going full throttle into the store and you're already, kind of in this high responsive state, just take a pause, sit in the parking lot for a minute, 30 seconds, take some deep breaths before you enter the store so that you know you're as emotionally regulated as you can be. How does that sound? I know we always think, well, I don't have time to do that. But I feel like the time that it takes to take a few deep breaths is so much more powerful than you going in and saying or doing something that you would regret because you weren't ready to enter all that chaos. So I think another pause is before a family dinner, just making it or just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go out and take a quick walk. I noticed over Thanksgiving, I saw tons of people in my neighborhood that I don't normally see. And a lot of times it was parents visiting adult kids. A lot of times it was like college kids home to visit mom and dad. And I saw a lot of people out walking. And I would like to think that, yes, it's because people are into healthy behavior. But I also think that it's a good way just to ground yourself and get out of all the chaos and step away, take a walk, get out into the outdoors and just have a few minutes to yourself so that again, you're as regulated as you can be and that people want to be around you and that you're adding joy, not causing tension for everyone because you're experiencing tension. So I think walking before a family dinner or after a family dinner or just anytime you need to throughout your stay. I think waiting 24 hours before you commit to anything is a good idea. So when the invitations start rolling in, really checking your calendar, sleeping on the invite, and deciding whether or not it's going to work for you. I think that using food prep time is a great time to kind of check in and do an active meditation, more of a moving meditation. Just use that time to think about what's going on in your mind. Food prep can be, for some people, it's stressful. For other people, it's kind of a nice, relaxing time just to be with you and think about nourishment and healthy behaviors. Um, I think that I've used the whole I have to take this call or I have to get something out of my vehicle and just a quick pause. Like when someone throws bait and you feel triggered or they've opened up an old wound, maybe it's time just to say, hey, I just remembered I got to get something out of my car. Or, oh, I need to take this call. Because any buffer between what was said or done and how you're going to respond is going to just make all the difference in the outcome of the situation. Because again, just because somebody says something that upsets us is not an invitation for us to react poorly, right? Just because they react or they said something in bad taste doesn't mean that gives us the right to do tit for tat. So getting something out of your car, taking a call, using pets or kids as a buffer. I often find myself doing that, gravitating to the littles or gravitating toward the furry animals, because then I get to have joy. I get to kind of downregulate my nervous system and I get to kind of stay out of conversations that look like they might be going into politics or a topic that I know is not going to go well. So you can also, in terms of like ways to kind of take pauses, is just, using morning quiet time, like during your cup of coffee, getting up 10 minutes before everyone else gets up, or maybe even use an evening time and staying up a little bit later so that you can have a reset time before you go to bed. And maybe that's where you write out your lists or your thoughts, or you purge unhelpful mental stimuli, or you just kind of shed all the what, and then you write it out and you tear it up, or you just get rid of it so that you can sleep more healthfully. So, again, I'm Angie Miller. This is Strong Mind, Strong Body. And I'm just talking about the power of a pause during the holidays so that you don't hit burnout or have a breakdown in front of everyone. So, taking the deep breaths before you enter the store, taking walks when you're visiting family or even throughout the day, waiting 24 hours before you commit to events, using food prep as meditation time, getting something from the car, taking a call, using pets or kids as a buffer, and then also using morning time or evening time, quiet time. Okay. So, those are some of my in the moment strategies to just kind of pause and check in with yourself. I think a couple other quick techniques is just a little check in once in a while is this going to matter in January? Right? Like, is how my tree is decorated going to matter in January? Is whether or not I attend that holiday event going to matter in January? I mean, is it going to matter a month down the road, a couple of weeks down the road when all of this is behind me? I think a gratitude pause can also be very powerful. So when it feels like you've had a day that's nothing but chaos, just what's working, what's going well, what feels good, what did happen that I can celebrate? Or even just the whole, hey, my family, we had a discussion that didn't go well, but that discussion lasted an hour and we've been together for a week. So we've had all these hours where things did go well. And it's kind of normal, I think, that one of those hours or one of those days might not go as well as expected. Holidays don't have to be perfect. They just have to be good enough, the best we can do in the moment. And we have to give ourselves and those around us grace that we're not all used to being together all the time. So it's natural that there's going to be some disagreements or things aren't always going to go perfectly. So I think, again, a boundary pause, is this worth it? Do I have time for this? Do I need to accept this invitation to spar with somebody because they said something to me? And then, as much as you need a boundary pause, what about just a joy audit? Not just a gratitude audit, but a joy audit. Like, is this going to add joy or is it going to rob me of joy? Or is it actually necessary? Or am I martyring myself and saying that it's necessary? Right. Because again, it's that whole codependent thing. We sometimes get caught up in thinking that other people need us, but maybe we just need to be needed. And sometimes we have to check in with that. So, right. I don't know which one of those speak to you, but I'm hoping at least one or two do. So here's a few more tips that I have that I think that you can create calm for yourself during the holidays. Okay. So in the morning, before you're tempted to check social media and see what everybody did the weekend before, what if you just do a few minutes of mindful breathing? Or you take that cup of coffee and you just sit and you just kind of look out the window for 1 minute, 1.5 minutes before you even open up your phone. What if you have a car sanctuary practice where before you take off, you do a couple of deep breaths? Again, you get to the parking lot, you do a couple of deep breaths. Your car's like your little private sanctuary where you get to be alone as you're on your way to the next place. But how you spend that time really can determine how good it goes when you get there. Right? Are you listening to nice, cheerful holiday music? Or are you listening to like bang your head angry music? Because that makes all the difference when you arrive. I think that you can also have those kitchen breaks like I talked about, but you can also have bathroom meditation moments. Another excuse could be, hey, I'm going to escape to the bathroom for a few minutes and I'm just going to do some deep breathing, or I'm going to press against the sink and do a grounding exercise. If you find that during the holidays you're underwhelmed and you don't have enough going on, you could create virtual coffee dates with your friends or just kind of create your own meaningful online celebrations. So, I guess my call to action for you before I close up would be, what is one simple pause that you could take today that would make a difference for you today? Because that's the only day we know about. What's a simple pause that you can take today that would just kind of help you downregulate and get through today? And then I think another call to action item would be just give yourself permission to create holidays that feel authentic to you. I know that we grew up and things were a certain way, but now that we are who we are in our lives and we've created these families of our own, what are some, ways that you can spend your holiday that feels authentic to you? And then last but not least, give yourself permission to prioritize peace over perfection. Because I know we all strive for like that perfect holiday because we want everybody to get along so well. But there are probably going to be moments where people are less than joyful or less than fun to be around. And that's okay because they're human and we're flawed, right? But we do our best. So, this is my invitation to you to share a pause or two during the holidays. Give yourself the gift of a pause and get as much joy out of this season as you possibly can. So, again, I'm Angie Miller. I really appreciate you joining me, and I'll see you next week.